How much scope does say an ICE officer have on an audit coming for I-9s for someone who does have these records electronically commingled? And let's just assume employer's done nothing wrong, but kind of like you said, the purpose of it, if you're going to do it physically, you have a binder, say, hey, here's your I-9s, look at them, explore them, but you don't need to be looking at all my personnel files. If I am storing this electronically, does that auditor have a legal right to say, hey, give me login and give me access to your HR system so that they can just kind of dig around and hunt? Or where do
No, I mean, they don't have the time, and that's not really their scope, right? So they're just going to say, let me see the I-9s. And you'll say, hey, can I sit you down and let you look at this electronic file where they all are? And they may say yes, and then they say no. See, so what happens when they come to do an audit is they're going to give you a notice of inspection, okay? That gives you 3 days to produce the I-9 forms. And you're going to work with your auditor, because I'm just going to tell you, they're all a little bit different in their request, right? And so you can say, can I send you, an electronic file, and can you look at them electronically, or do you need them, in paper? And I think things are evolving. But I will tell you that is a regular inspection. If ICE gets notification from maybe a disgruntled employee, maybe, somebody who knows you're not doing I-9s, if they get a complaint like that, they can come in that day, and they've been known to look at your I-9s that day. Okay. If you have 3 days, call me, and we're going to fix it. We're going to help you get things in order. Okay. But I'm just saying, one of the big audits I did, Mike, the employer was a manufacturer with 500 employees. Can you imagine looking at 500 forms in 3 days? I brought a team with me. We got through them, and they literally had to terminate.
It's only 500 if they have 0% turnover for the last decade, right? Because if there's turnover, it's a hell of a lot more than that.
There was definitely, there was terminated forms that we had to look at too. You're absolutely right. They had to end up terminating, my recommendation, 7 individuals who they did not have proper identification for. And the individuals couldn't supply proper identification. Look, I've had employers hire, Joe Smith, and a year later, Joe comes in sheepishly and says, here's my social security card, and it says, John Jones. And they're like, what? And he's like, yeah, John Jones. Because you can buy social security cards, false social security cards. So you have to be careful. But you don't have to be an auditor. If an employee gives you identification or shows you identification that looks legitimate, you're not going to get fined on that, right? You don't have to be an auditor level, to hold it up to the light and all that. But, social, if it's blatant, then you would need to know. And so after your audit, they will give you a review of the issues and the violations that they want to levy, okay? You can negotiate with them, believe it or not, and say, listen, this is the reason for this. We're changing it. We did the audit before you came in. These are the checks and balances, so that they really just want to know that you're going to be in compliance going forward. And they're not going to say, okay, you don't have any fines. But, if you negotiate properly and respectfully, and they see there's checks and balances, and, you want to be in compliance going forward, I have found that they will lower those on a pretty consistent basis. It's rare that I've seen an auditor dig in and say, no, I'm not changing those. And when they do the audit, you're going to have 2 different kind of violations that they're going to find. technical and substantive. Okay. Now, the technical ones are for those of you who are listening and going, "Oh, no worries, Mary. I fill out my I-9s. I think I'm all good." But in the beginning of this, I said they get very particular about how you fill them out. So be careful about the errors. Make sure you're training your managers on how to fill them out. Those technical errors can be something like having whiteout on your I-9. It could be, filling out the I-9 10 days after the employee started versus the 3 days. There's a lot of technical errors that they can find. Now, the substantive violations are what they sound like they are. They're egregious in the eyes of the law, and they are typically the result. That's where most of your fines are going to come out of, and the bigger fines that are going to happen will for distortion of the facts. And I can tell you, for those of you listening, when you don't have any I-9s, and in particular, if you have I-9s for some people and not other individuals in your organization, they're going to come down hard. I have had more than one employer come to me after they got the notice from ICE of an audit for me to assist them, and they had 0 I-9s. And I'm sorry to say, I've had more than one of those individuals actually go out of business, because these penalties can be anywhere from $252, right, for whiteout, right, to $2,507 per work violation. Meaning, if you made the same error on all 500 employees, multiply $2,507 times 500 employees. You can see where that adds up. Your first offense can even be up to, for some, violations, can be even as high as 5,000. I've seen second offenses, they're going to more than double it, like 12,537. I don't know why the numbers are so odd, but they are. Why can't it just be 12,500? But anyway. And then the third offense can go all the way up to 25,000 plus per violation.